We have a great show, but before we continue, there are a few housekeeping rules I'm implementing to keep the Oscars running smoothly. Okay? Adam, what are you wearing?
What are you doing right now?
I'm asking you what you're wearing.
Nobody even thought about what I was wearing till you brought it up!
A real pain.
It started with a laugh, but it ended with a storm, as during his post-Oscar segment, Conan O'Brien cracked a joke that immediately sent Hollywood into a frenzy. Known for his sharp wit and subtle digs at the industry, Conan delivered one line that resonated far beyond the laughter it initially sparked. You ever see someone show up to the Oscars like they're the main character, when they weren't even on the call sheet? He raised an eyebrow as the audience chuckled nervously, but insiders knew exactly who he was talking about: Blakelively. It wasn't merely a joke, it was a precise jab, and within hours, fan forums erupted. Clips of Blake's dramatic red carpet entrance began circulating online. PR insiders whispered about backstage tension, and everyone started asking, what happened at the Oscars this year? Conan, someone typically careful to avoid controversy, had publicly swung at a target everyone recognized. The story behind Blake's presence wasn't about fashion or glamour. It was about power, control, and a night where the illusion of grace might have finally cracked. Conan's line was subtle, woven into a monologue packed with Hollywood barbs, yet it hit differently. Grinning at the camera, he added, "There's always one actress who shows up and acts like she's the reason we're all here. She's not nominated. She's not presenting, but she's working harder than the camera crew. You know who I mean." The crowd laughed nervously as he continued, "I saw someone backstage pulling strings like it was the Hunger Games. And let me tell you, the Capitol would be proud." That was it, the moment that froze insiders in place. No names were spoken, but the internet needed no prompting. Redditus quickly connected the dots. Blakelively, despite having no film in contention, had arrived in a meticulously curated look, timed press rollout, and an aura that seemed to dominate the night. The red carpet footage backed it up. She wasn't merely attending, she was commanding the room. What seemed like a fleeting joke on Conan's stage carried an unmistakable weight. It was a surgical strike, exposing a subtle tension between celebrity perception and reality, and signaling that even carefully crafted Hollywood personas could not entirely escape public scrutiny. In one line, Conan O'Brien summed up the power, influence, and behind-the-scenes control that had become the topic of whispers, debates, and endless online speculation.
And then for me right here, once you in, beautiful.
Blakelively wasn't a nominee. She wasn't a presenter. She didn't have a film in competition, nor was she attached to any of the evening's headlining projects. And yet when she stepped onto the red carpet, all eyes and all cameras seemed magnetically drawn to her. She arrived in a custom couture gown that transformed mid-step, flanked by a small army of publicists, stylists, and security, while a dozen photographers had reportedly been tipped off to capture her from precisely the perfect angles. She arrived a full 15 minutes before several A-list nominees, effectively taking over the pre-show buzz, and sources backstage revealed that Blake's team had strategically pushed for her to walk at a very specific moment just before the major nominees hit the carpet, coordinating her entrance with media breaks to ensure maximum coverage. But that was just the beginning. Multiple publicists claimed Blake's team asked for photo exclusivity, meaning they wanted certain agencies to prioritize her images over others, and one fashion reporter even tweeted, "It's like she's hosting." Where are the actual nominees? Behind the curtain, the chaos intensified. According to insiders, Blake's team attempted to adjust the red carpet run order, an unprecedented request, to prevent her from being overshadowed. One organizer allegedly overheard the phrase, "We need a moment. She is the moment." And while it was bold and calculated, to many it crossed a line. While Blake dazzled on the carpet outside, backstage reports described an unusual level of interference from her team. She reportedly requested a last-minute presenting slot despite not being part of the show, and though the Academy declined, sources said she appeared visibly frustrated, pacing, checking her phone repeatedly, and huddling with her team in the wings, with one producer describing her demeanor as entitled royalty waiting for her crown. Things escalated further when she attempted to secure seating near the front row reserved for nominees and presenters, with her team allegedly arguing she was better for reaction shots, though the request was denied, and she reportedly left her assigned seat twice during the ceremony, whispering to staff and inquiring about open spots near the A-listers. Crew members claimed she wasn't merely attending, she was running her own Oscars campaign at an event she wasn't formally part of. Meanwhile, Conan O'Brien's post-Oscar monologue, which included the now-famous line comparing red carpet antics to a Hunger Games-style power grab, was reportedly influenced directly by these backstage stories. Writers from Conan's team later revealed that the line had been added just hours before taping after a friend of the show, who worked production at the Oscars, called in to describe Blake's behind-the-scenes maneuvers, noting that it wasn't gossip but first-hand frustration. Other insiders corroborated, citing instances such as a makeup artist overhearing her stylist demanding lighting changes and a photographer's assistant claiming they were told to clear the shot when other stars entered Blake's frame. An anonymous Hollywood producer commented that Conan's line was calculated but justified, noting that he knew where the lines were and only crossed them when the situation warranted it, and while the audience laughed, insiders understood the subtext perfectly. For Blake, the joke was not just a passing quip. It was a public acknowledgement of her behind-the-scenes actions, and the combined effect of strategic entrances, photo exclusivity demands, attempts to manipulate seating, and backstage frustrations revealed a level of calculated control and ambition that few had witnessed before, making the segment both devastating for her image and a watershed moment in how Hollywood viewed her influence and power during one of its most closely watched nights. Be caught. The internet wasted no time. Within hours of Conan O'Brien's segment airing, social media erupted with speculation, and fans began combing through Oscars footage with a fine-tooth comb, slowing down red carpet videos, comparing timelines, and even lip-reading clips that hinted at tense interactions. Several observers noted that Zendaya, who appeared just minutes after Blake, seemed to avoid eye contact as she passed on the carpet, while another moment went viral when Rachel Zegler, standing near Blake during a group press shot, suddenly shifted positions. Some claimed it was a deliberate snub, others dismissed it as standard Hollywood choreography. Reddit threads dissected every second, pointing out how Blake seemed to materialize out of nowhere while nominated stars were kept waiting behind her, and TikTok creators spliced multiple camera angles to illustrate just how much space Blake's team commanded compared to everyone else. The phrase "Conan exposed Blake" was trending within 24 hours, and industry bloggers began reporting on the alleged backstage incidents, adding fuel to the fire. One gossip newsletter even claimed that a famous producer privately thanked Conan for finally saying aloud what everyone backstage had been whispering. Suddenly, Blake's carefully curated image, effortless, glamorous, and unbothered, was under intense scrutiny. The public wasn't just watching her walk in stunning gowns anymore. They were analyzing who she walked past, who she overshadowed, and how much control her team exerted over the evening. Every smile, every sidestep, every strategic pause became evidence in an unofficial investigation into Hollywood power dynamics, leaving fans debating whether her behavior was ambition, entitlement, or something far more calculated, and cementing the segment as a turning point in how insiders and audiences alike perceived Blake Lively's presence at the Oscars.
Zendaya! Can we get away, Zendaya?
To some, this might have seemed like a one-off misstep, a diva moment gone too far, but for those paying attention, it fit a pattern. Conan O'Brien's dig wasn't happening in a vacuum. It followed years of murmurs about Blake Lively's behind-the-scenes behavior. Whispers circulated about sabotaged campaigns, solo press power grabs, and collaborators being edged out just before major launches. The Met Gala dominance, the Dior takeover from Anne Hathaway, the Zendaya fashion snub, all of it had been whispered, speculated, and dissected across corners of the internet. Now those fragments were coalescing into a narrative, one Conan's joke seemed to confirm. Major outlets began weighing in. Some questioned whether Blake's style icon status was built on curated image management, while others ran softer critiques under headlines like, Is Blake Lively taking up too much space? Oscar's appearance sparks red carpet debate. The shift was subtle but tangible. Even her fans began asking hard questions. Why was she always at the center of drama, without ever being in the movie? And Blake said nothing. If there was any hope Conan would walk it back, that hope vanished. Days later on his podcast, he referenced the incident again. "I'm not naming names," he said with a chuckle, "but if your dress has its own zip code and your ego needs its own seat, maybe take a year off." His co-host laughed. The audience roared, but Hollywood insiders heard the message loud and clear. It wasn't just about the Oscars. It was about what the Oscars represented: power, recognition, and image. Conan was using humor to speak the truth many were too afraid to voice, that Blake's presence had become performative, overwhelming, and, frankly, exhausting. More importantly, he was opening a door for others to acknowledge the same. He wasn't being cruel. He was being real. In Hollywood, where everything is PR tested and sanitized, that made it all the more dangerous. The Oscars are meant to honor the best in film, but this year, they did something else. They revealed the cracks in the industry's most polished personas. Conan didn't just tell a joke. He told the truth in a way that couldn't be ignored. With one line, he peeled back the illusion of Blake Lively's perfection and reminded everyone that image, no matter how glossy, is not the same as authenticity. For Blake, the night that was supposed to be another red carpet triumph became far more damaging, a turning point, a moment when the industry stopped admiring her gowns and started scrutinizing her behavior. And as Conan reportedly said behind the scenes, sometimes the person doing the most has the least reason to be there.